Embrace adversity as your greatest teacher. Pain and challenges are not roadblocks, they are the curriculum of life. Every hardship is a lesson in patience, strength, and purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is one truth I have learned through pain, loss, and unimaginable challenges, it is this: adversity is the greatest teacher you will ever have. Life doesn't teach us through comfort, it teaches us through storms. You don't become strong by sitting in still waters. You become strong when the waves hit you hard, and somehow you learn how to float. That's where the real learning begins. When I was just 21, I was in a car accident that changed everything. One moment, I was a young girl, full of dreams and plans. The next moment, I was told I would never walk again. My spine was crushed. My life, as I had imagined it, was shattered. For many days, I questioned, why me? I cried. I broke. I lost hope. But something miraculous happened in those moments of darkness. I began to see adversity not as punishment, but as preparation. Adversity is not meant to destroy you, it's meant to wake you up. It's life's way of saying, there is more inside you than you ever knew. Just as gold is purified through fire, your character is purified through hardship. You don't become wise by avoiding pain, you become wise by learning from it. In our educational systems, we often focus on academic learning, math, science, literature. But let me ask you this: where in the curriculum is pain? Where in the curriculum is heartbreak? Where is failure? These are the lessons that truly shape you. When everything is taken away, your health, your appearance, your plans, you discover who you really are. It was lying in that hospital bed for 2 years, unable to move, watching the world go on without me, that I learned my first real lesson in patience, not from a textbook, but from life itself. I learned to be still. I learned to breathe. I learned to accept. And slowly I learned to hope again. Adversity teaches you the language of resilience. It teaches you the importance of gratitude. You start noticing small things, a smile, a kind word, a moment of peace. When life slows you down, you finally start to listen to your heart, your inner voice, and to the quiet call of purpose. But here's what I want every student, every teacher, and every soul listening today to remember: you don't have to go through a tragedy to learn from adversity. Life gives each of us our own version of struggle. For one, it might be a broken home. For another, it might be mental health battles. For someone else, it might be poverty, rejection, or failure. Whatever your adversity looks like, don't run from it. Lean into it. Ask it, what are you here to teach me? In embracing adversity, you stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the author of your life. You stop asking why me and start saying try me. You stop waiting for someone to save you and start realizing you are your own hero. To the students sitting in classrooms and to the teachers shaping young minds, please don't hide the pain. Talk about it, teach through it, learn from it, because adversity doesn't just build strength, it builds character, empathy, and purpose. And those are the qualities this world needs more than ever. So the next time life knocks you down, and it will remember this: you are not being punished, you are being prepared. Embrace adversity, not as your enemy, but as your greatest teacher. Keynote 2: redefine beauty and strength on your own terms. True beauty lies in resilience, not perfection. It's not about how you look, it's about how you rise after every fall. Dear friends, there is a silent pressure that weighs heavily on so many of us, especially the youth. The pressure to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain kind of perfect. But let me tell you this from my heart: perfection is a myth, and real beauty is not what you see in the mirror, it's what you carry in your soul. I remember when I was lying in a hospital bed, after my accident, multiple surgeries had left scars all over my body. My spine was broken. I couldn't sit up without support. My skin was pale. My hair had fallen out in patches, and I no longer recognized the girl I saw in the mirror. The world told me I was no longer beautiful. They whispered that my life was now less than, because I was in a wheelchair. But that's where they were wrong, and where I finally became free. You see, society often defines beauty with such narrow terms: symmetry, smoothness, youth, and mobility. But when life strips away those external layers, you start discovering a different kind of beauty, the beauty of resilience, of courage, of acceptance. That kind of beauty doesn't fade. It only grows stronger with time. In those quiet moments of pain and reflection, I made a decision. I would no longer let the world define my beauty or my strength. I would define it for myself. And I want you to do the same. Beauty is not in the face. It's not in flawless skin or the number on the scale. Beauty is in the kindness you show to others when no one is watching. It's in the strength to wake up and keep going even when life feels unbearable. It's in the scars you carry because they are proof that you survived something that tried to break you. Strength, too, is misunderstood. People think strength means having everything together, but true strength is shown in moments of vulnerability. It's when you admit you're hurting, yet still show up. It's when you feel weak, but choose not to give up. It's not in how much you can lift physically. It's in how much you can carry emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. In schools, we need to start teaching this, that worth is not found in appearance, but in character, that your value doesn't diminish because you are different. In fact, your difference is your power. Let's raise a generation that praises empathy over aesthetics and authenticity over filters. I want to say something especially to young girls and boys who look at social media and feel less than. Stop comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. That girl with the perfect skin may be crying herself to sleep. That boy with the perfect body may feel completely empty inside. Comparison kills confidence. Self-love revives it. I am in a wheelchair, and yet I have painted, spoken on global platforms, inspired millions, and lived a life of purpose. Not because I fit into society's mold of beauty and strength, but because I shattered it and built my own. So redefine beauty for yourself. Let it mean something more. Let it mean integrity. Let it mean healing. Let it mean joy that isn't based on how you look, but on how you live. Redefine strength as showing up in your truth, not hiding behind a mask. You are not broken, you are becoming. And in that becoming, you are more beautiful and stronger than you have ever been. Keynote 3. Break the silence around pain and speak your truth. Dear friends, vulnerability is power. When we share our stories, we heal ourselves and inspire others to do the same. One of the most powerful realizations I've had in my life is this: our silence about our pain does not protect us. It isolates us. And worse, it keeps others in silence, too. You may not realize it, but your voice could be someone else's lifeline. This is why it is so important that we break the silence around pain and learn to speak our truth, not just for ourselves, but for the world that needs to hear it. When I met with tragedy, my accident, my paralysis, the emotional scars of abandonment and rejection, I kept quiet at first. I smiled on the outside and broke on the inside. I thought no one would understand. I was ashamed of my pain. I thought it made me look weak. And I know many of you feel the same. Maybe you're carrying invisible wounds, trauma, anxiety, depression, failure, and you keep it all bottled up because you've been taught that silence is strength. But let me tell you the truth. I've learned silence is not strength, truth is. When I first shared my story publicly, I was terrified. I wasn't just telling people about a car crash. I was telling them about how I lost myself, how I battled depression, how I felt unloved and forgotten. But what I discovered was astonishing. The moment I opened my heart, others found the courage to open theirs. Students, teachers, professionals, even strangers came to me and said, I thought I was the only one. That's when I realized that pain connects us. It doesn't separate us. We live in a world that teaches us to only show the happy parts, the filtered versions, the trophies. But real life is messy, raw, and imperfect. And it is in that imperfection that real strength, real healing, and real connection are born. If we want to educate a generation that is not only intelligent, but emotionally resilient, we must teach them how to process and express their pain. Schools must be safe spaces where mental health is not just discussed during one seminar a year, but integrated into everyday learning. Students must be taught that it's okay to not be okay. They must be encouraged to share, to write, to speak, to ask for help. And you, yes, you, your voice matters, your story matters. You don't have to be a public speaker or an artist. You just have to be willing to be honest with yourself and with others. Because when you speak your truth, you give permission to others to do the same. Now, I'm not saying you have to tell the world everything. Sometimes, speaking your truth means simply acknowledging it to yourself. Sometimes, it means confiding in a friend, a teacher, or a counselor. And sometimes, it means using your pain as a tool, not to hurt, but to heal. Pain can make you bitter, or it can make you better. The difference is whether you let it stay buried or bring it into the light. I used to think my wheelchair was the biggest limitation in my life, but I've come to understand that the real limitation would have been never using my voice. I chose to speak up, not because I had all the answers, but because I had lived the questions. So I say to you today, break the silence, speak your truth. Someone out there is waiting for your words to give them hope, to make them feel less alone. And you, by being brave enough to share, just might save a life, including your own. Remember, your truth is not a weakness, it is your greatest strength. Keynote 4. Don't wait for validation. Become your own support system. Dear friends, let me begin with a simple truth. If you keep waiting for others to validate your worth, you will stay waiting for the rest of your life. One of the hardest yet most empowering lessons I have learned is this: you must become your own cheerleader, your own motivator, your own unwavering support system. I speak this not from theory, but from experience. After my accident, I spent 2 years confined to a hospital bed. I had lost the ability to walk, the dreams I once held, and the sense of identity I had built around physical movement. But what hurt the most wasn't the physical pain, it was the emotional void that followed. Some friends left, family didn't always understand, the world moved on, and I felt left behind. For a long time, I waited for someone to come and lift me out of the darkness. I waited for someone to remind me of my worth, to tell me that I still mattered. But that moment never came, and in that stillness, I realized something powerful. No one was coming, and maybe that wasn't a tragedy, maybe it was a gift. Because it was in that moment that I decided, if no one was going to support me, I would support myself. We live in a world where we are constantly seeking validation from parents, teachers, peers, social media. We post pictures and wait for likes. We share achievements and hope for applause. We let the opinions of others decide whether we are good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough. But that kind of validation is temporary. It comes and goes. One moment you're praised, the next you're criticized. So what happens when the applause stops? What happens when no one is watching? That's when you need to learn to clap for yourself. Self-validation is not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's looking in the mirror and saying, I am enough, even if no one says it today. It's waking up and choosing to believe in your own voice, even when the world is silent. And it's reminding yourself that your worth is not tied to what you achieve, but to who you are when everything else is stripped away. I say this especially to young students who are growing up in a time where external validation seems like the measure of success. You don't need 1,000 followers to be valuable. You don't need a certificate to be proud of yourself. What you need is a belief so strong, so unshakable, that no failure can destroy it. Be the kind of person who motivates themselves. When you fall, be the voice that says, get up. When you doubt, be the one who whispers, try again. When the world forgets you, be the one who remembers your purpose. That's true empowerment. And yes, you will have moments of weakness. You will have days where the silence is loud and the loneliness is real. But those are the days you need to return to the foundation you've built within. That inner voice, the one you've nurtured, protected, and strengthened, will carry you forward. I no longer wait for validation. I paint, I speak, I create, not because someone asked me to, but because I know I have something to give. And so do you. You don't need anyone's permission to live fully, love deeply, or dream boldly. Give that permission to yourself. So please, stop waiting for someone to tell you you're capable. Look in the mirror and tell yourself. Because once you become your own support system, nothing and no one can break you. You are enough, not because others say it, but because you finally believe it. Thank you. Keynote 5. turn disabilities into possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a common misconception that a disability limits your life, that it defines you, that it shrinks your future. But I am here to tell you this: a disability is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a different kind of purpose. When I became paralyzed at the age of 21, everything in my life seemed to collapse. I could no longer walk, no longer dance, and no longer follow the dreams I had once so vividly envisioned. I was told by doctors, by society, even by my own inner fears, that my life would now be limited, that I would need to lower my expectations, that my role in the world had somehow diminished. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. As I lay in a hospital bed, unable to move, I discovered the greatest truth of my life. My body may have been broken, but my spirit was not, and that spirit had a purpose far bigger than anything I had ever planned. You see, disability is not inability. Disability is simply a different way of experiencing the world. It does not close the door to opportunity. It opens a new one. But that shift doesn't come from the world around you. It begins with you, with how you see yourself, with how you choose to define your life, your worth, and your capability. I began to paint because my heart needed to express what my body could no longer do. I held the paintbrush with fingers that barely moved, and slowly, stroke by stroke, I created beauty, not just on the canvas, but inside myself. I began to speak, not because I wanted attention, but because I realized that my voice could become a source of hope for someone else who felt lost. I didn't need to walk to make an impact. I didn't need to stand to take a stand. I just needed the courage to believe that my story mattered. And so does yours. To every person listening who has been told they're less than because of a disability, be it physical, mental, or emotional, I want you to know this: you are not broken, you are whole in a different way, and the world needs the perspective that only you can offer. To educators and institutions, we must stop seeing disabilities as deficits. Our schools and workplaces must become inclusive, compassionate spaces where every ability is seen as a potential, not a problem. The curriculum should not only teach mathematics and language, but teach children how to respect, support, and celebrate differences. And to all of you, if you ever feel limited by your circumstances, remember this: limitations only exist in the mind. I have traveled the world in a wheelchair. I have spoken to thousands. I have raised a beautiful son. I have inspired change, not because I overcame my disability, but because I embraced it. It became the platform from which I rose. It became the lens through which I saw the world with deeper empathy. It became the fuel for my mission to redefine what it means to live a meaningful life. We must stop asking people with disabilities to fit in. Instead, we must reshape the world to recognize that different is not less. It is simply different, and that difference can be the key to a deeper understanding, a wider perspective, and a more compassionate world. So, the next time life places a roadblock in your path, whether visible or invisible, don't see it as the end. See it as a detour to a greater destination. Turn your disability into a possibility, not despite it, but because of it. Thank you. Keynote 6. Choose gratitude over self-pity. Dear friends, let me ask you something very simple, but very deep. What do you focus on when you wake up every morning? What you have or what you've lost? Because that one choice shapes not just your day, but your destiny. I know what it's like to feel broken, defeated, even forgotten. After my accident, when I found myself in a wheelchair, paralyzed for life, I had every reason to drown in self-pity. My body no longer moved the way it used to. My dreams of becoming an artist and a wife were shattered. I was only 21 years old, and life felt over. And for a while, I did fall into that dark pit. I cried. I blamed. I asked why me. I looked at everyone else, walking, dancing, laughing, and I felt invisible, angry, and helpless. But one day, something shifted, not in the world around me, but within me. I realized that if I continued to focus on what was lost, I would never be able to see what was still mine. And so I chose gratitude, not because everything was okay, but because I wanted to be okay, because I finally understood that gratitude isn't about having a perfect life. It's about learning to see the good in an imperfect one. I started to focus on what I could still do. I could still speak. I could still feel. I could still think, dream, and love. I could still paint with broken hands. Yes, but a whole heart. I could still be a mother, even if I couldn't bear a child biologically. I could still make a difference. You see, self-pity is a trap. It keeps you frozen in time, convinced that you are a victim of circumstances. But gratitude is a bridge. It helps you walk through pain and discover strength you never knew you had. Gratitude gives you the power to turn wounds into wisdom, scars into stories, and tragedy into triumph. We must teach this to our youth. In a world that constantly bombards us with reasons to feel not enough, we must nurture a mindset of appreciation. In our schools, in our homes, in our hearts, we must replace "why me" with "what now." We must replace blame with acceptance and despair with direction. Gratitude does not mean denying your pain. It means refusing to let that pain define your future. It means saying, yes, life hurt me, but I'm still here. I still have breath. I still have today. And that is more than enough to begin again. And here's the beauty of it. Gratitude is contagious. When you practice it, you inspire others to do the same. When you walk into a room with joy, despite your pain, you teach people that happiness is a choice, not a condition. When you live with grace and gratefulness, you become a mirror for others to see their blessings more clearly. I didn't choose what happened to me, but I chose what I did with it. I chose to stop asking for sympathy and start offering hope. I chose to see my wheelchair not as a curse, but as a platform to rise from. And I chose to thank life, not because it gave me what I wanted, but because it gave me what I needed to become who I was meant to be. So, today, I ask you, will you live in self-pity, or will you rise in gratitude? Will you focus on your wounds, or will you use them as wings? The choice is yours. But I promise you this, when you start counting your blessings instead of your burdens, you'll find strength you didn't know you had. And that strength will light a path, not just for you, but for everyone around you. Choose gratitude, always. Thank you.